Welcome to another episode of Equity Mates, a podcast where we explore what is possible in the world of investing. If you've just joined the community for the first time, welcome. We have a huge episode for you today. My name is Bryce, and as always, I'm joined by my equity buddy, Ren. How are you going?
I'm very good, Bryce. Very excited for this episode. Very excited for our Super September to continue.
Yes.
I think people are probably getting sick of me talking about it, so just going to mention it at the top. And let's get into the episode.
What is it? What if people have just joined?
Oh, well, if you've joined us for the first time, welcome. And what a time to join us. Because Super September is that time of year where we check in on our superannuation account. What fees we're paying, have we got the right settings, do we have any duplicates? And then most importantly, can we make any concessional contributions for the month? Obviously, it's great if you're doing it all year. But if you're not interested in doing it all year, just for 1 month, can we make some extra concessional contributions and take advantage of our tax advantage retirement savings accounts?
That's it.
Have you made any contribution?
Not as yet. Okay. But let me guarantee to be honest, I completely forgot about Super September.
Oh, no, that's not what we're going for.
Let me make a commitment that the next time we sit down, I will have made a voluntary contribution.
Nice. Okay.
Yes,
okay.
Absolutely. Well, I'm going to max it out for the second half of this month.
Nice. Well, we got a big episode, so let's get into it. We're going to cover off some of the news that is moving markets. We've got a listener question on setting up their core ETF portfolios. And then we are finishing with another segment of investor cheat sheet, where we're looking under the hood at some of the portfolios of the world's best investors.
Love it. Can't wait. Well, let's get stuck in for news and views.
News and markets.
Well, Bryce, the biggest news of the day.
In Springfield, they're eating the dogs, the people that came in. They're eating the cats. They're eating the pets of the people that live there. And this is what's happening in our country. And
Trump losing the plot. We had the presidential debate. At the time of recording, the presidential debate was yesterday, Australian time. We were actually watching it in the security line at the international airport in Sydney. You'll understand why when you tune in to Get Started Investing over the coming weeks, because we were filming with Singapore Airlines. But
yes, now I'm not playing that to talk about the debate or make any political statement, but I just found this interesting. You'll often hear who won the debate in the news coverage afterwards, and they'll poll likely voters or something boring like that. Here's how we can assess as investors who won the debate, how the share market moved. So here's how the share market moved after the debate. Trump Media and Technology Group shares fell 17.8%, 17.9%. And the Invesco Solar ETF gained 3%, on the thoughts that it was more likely that the Democrats would win.
yeah.
So we can also use the stock market to get a sense of who won. I just found that an interesting tidbit.
Yeah, I think the stock closed down 10%. It's the lowest since it IPO'd, Trump Media. Yeah. So absolutely it can't get any worse for Trump.
We're getting, his stake in a social media company that he just made up is worth like $1.9 billion. It can get a lot worse. But the really interesting thing, watching that stock, the lockup period it ends in like 2 weeks. So Trump will be allowed to sell part or all of his shares. So it'll be interesting to see what he does.
Yes.
But look, anyway, we're not here to talk about that. I just wanted to bring that to the table. But 2 big news stories we want to cover off today. Apple's product launch and Rupert Murdoch's trouble.
Yes, Apple launched their iPhone 16 last week. Apple's shares have risen 28% over the past 6 months as investors have grown, I guess, excited about the largest tech company, one of the largest tech companies in the world, getting into the AI arms race.
It is once again the largest.
Oh, there we go. Back at the top.
Microsoft and Nvidia have fallen off a bit. It was getting into AI. That was the story. The last 6 months, it's coming. iPhone 16, it's coming. Apple's going to get into AI. It's going to change everything. The announcement happened. Did it change everything?
Well, everyone knew what the announcement was going to be. So, they'd front run that.
Well, they didn't know the specifics of how they were going to be integrating AI. That was the question.
I mean,
that was what all the hype was about.
I guess so, but how much can you really do it beyond what we already experience with AI is my point. It's going to just be a recommendation engine in your iPhone.
Well, that's what it was. You're right, but we didn't know that. there was hope that Apple would do something that was more innovative or different.
I guess, but like, yeah, I wasn't. Let me put it this way: I wasn't hanging hope there was going to be some whiz bang thing. To me, it was the announcement came when they said we're going to do a. We've partnered with OpenAI.
Yeah, I guess like Apple are the masters of taking technology and applying it to consumer applications in really elegant ways.
Okay, well, what did you find interesting about the AI thing?
Well, I think, look, you're right. There was nothing interesting. We didn't know it wasn't going to be interesting
Sure.
is my point. But look, I think you're right. Shares initially fell 2% on the announcement. They recovered to be flat for the day, but I think investors kind of shrugged.
Yeah.
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 But we didn't shrug because hidden in the announcement was some more interesting things outside of the AI stuff.
Yes. Yeah. So the Apple Watch will feature a sleep apnea detector, and the Apple AirPods 2 will be able to double as hearing aids.
Yeah.
Two pretty amazing things that I think are far more interesting than the AI integration.
Yeah.
And you can really see how they've just continued to push and push and push into wearables and healthcare.
Yeah, the healthcare story is really amazing. They've been working on this blood glucose monitor for a while with the Apple Watch that wouldn't require diabetics to prick their finger and draw blood.
That's amazing.
And it's crazy story, like secret startup for 10 years, not affiliated with Apple, and it's almost there, which is pretty cool. The sleep apnea detector. I reckon this is super interesting. I've actually bought some more ResMed as a result. Not a recommendation, just a disclosure, I guess, because the biggest story with sleep apnea is the massive rates of underdiagnosis. So many people live with sleep apnea and don't know it, never get a sleep test. Sleep tests are annoying to do. Even if you do an at-home one, they're annoying to do. And so a lot of people just snore through their life. They stop breathing when they're sleeping and they just don't even realize it and they don't do anything about it. If the Apple Watch can start telling people you have sleep apnea, the rates of diagnosis are going to increase. And ResMed and Fisher & Paykel Health are like the two big players in this space.
But riddle me this.
Okay.
There are applications that already do that. The Whoop will tell you what your breathing cycle is during
Who
the night.
wears a Whoop?
Well, what I'm saying is, again, this isn't, like the way that they've framed this, sleep apnea detector, good marketing.
Oh,
but the
wow.
functionality.
Wow.
The
Apple are taking functionality that people have already built and claiming it?
No, I'm not saying
That's
that,
not a
but
new story.
I'm saying the functionality.
That's a 20-year story. for
I'm
Apple.
saying the by ResMed is like, Apple Watch tells you this already, is what I'm saying. Like
No, the Apple Watch
doesn't tell you breathing pattern.
doesn't tell you this sleep apnea thing. Like if you've stopped breathing when you're sleeping.
Right. Okay. Well, there are other.
I'm sure there are
devices,
others.
yeah, like Whoop.
But that's not the reason that ResMed becomes more interesting. The reason that ResMed becomes more interesting is because more people wear the Apple Watch and therefore more people will get told.
I get it.
Like I don't care. I'm not buying Apple. I just want more and more for my selfish investment reasons. I just want more and more people to find out they have sleep apnea.
Yeah. The second part, Apple AirPods 2 doubling as a hearing aid. That is pretty amazing as well.
Yeah, it is pretty amazing.
Yeah.
The AirPods potentially ruin our hearing by the amount we put our headphones in and listen to things too loud. And now they're going to save our hearing.
True. Maybe not so good for cochlea.
Yeah, I've put that as a throwaway line in our email. Probably fine. People aren't going to substitute actual proper hearing devices
for
to
AirPods
always
too.
wear AirPods around.
Yeah, they'll improve, but yeah.
Yeah.
In other phone announcements, though, just to close out the phones, China's Huawei have unveiled the world's first Tri-Foldable phone called the Mate XT. Maybe we should have it here as our staff phone. They reckon they already have 4 million pre-orders.
We definitely should.
Mate XT.
Oh,
Come on.
So here's something that annoys me about this. It's pretty cool. Have a look at our email. We included a photo, or just Google it, of the phone. They call it a tri-fold phone. It's only 2 folds, though. It's 3 screens. So it's bifold.
Sure. All right, let's keep moving. Rupert Murdoch's succession troubles continue. I think as of today, time of recording, the court case kicks off in the States, where he is going up against his 3 other children, Rupert and Lachlan versus the 3 others. to settle the family or the control of the family trust.
Well, the control was settled 20 years ago. Rupert's trying to change
Yeah.
control to consolidate Lachlan's power, because when Rupert dies, if the trust stays as it is, the three kids can gang up on Lachlan and make Fox News maybe a better journalistic...
Just better for the world,
Yeah.
yes. But that wasn't the only news that was coming out in this story that's unfolding. Activist investor Starboard Value over in the States are also trying to end his control through a shareholder vote. They want to... Essentially, Rupert has 40% voting control despite only having 14% equity control.
Yeah. 41% if we want to be specific.
41%.
Yeah.
And Starboard Value want to change that as well.
Yeah, now Starboard Value have like a 20-year track record of they're as activists come in the US. They take minority stakes in companies, and then they publicly make a lot of noise to try and like get a CEO fired or to change business decisions. And they've had success over the years. They have had CEOs fired. They've had cleared out boards. And they've made a lot of money along the way. And so now they've taken this minority stake, and now they're trying to rally the shareholders publicly to vote to end the dual class structure. The fact that Rupert has 41% voting control means it's an uphill battle, because Rupert only needs a few loyal big shareholders to stay with him, and the vote won't pass.
Done. Yeah.
So this will be an interesting one to watch, both the children fighting their father and the activist investors fighting him as well. So let's watch that. To close out this news segment, we want to give love to two Australians taking on the world that caught our eye. First of all, ARB, the aftermarket's four-wheel drive specialist, an Aussie company truly taking on the world. They're now looking at buying a US company, Four Wheel Parts, for $45 million to further push into the US market. Just a really cool story. They've more than doubled in value over the past 5 years. And it's just an Australian company doing cool things. Speaking of Australian companies doing cool things, Bluey, the kids' entertainment program, has just become the #1 most watched TV show in the US.
Yeah, it's pretty phenomenal. 35 billion minutes have been streamed in the US this year.
Yeah, the question becomes, is Bluey Australia's greatest cultural export?
You'd have to put it up against the Wiggles.
The
to
Wiggles
find
is the
out.
other one that comes to mind, yeah.
Well, if you want to keep up with the news headlines, make sure you subscribe to our daily newsletter. There will be a link in the show notes or description.
G'day, equity mates. Bailey here. I just had a quick question about portfolio weighting and sort of moving out of your initial investing period. So initially, I purchased an S&P 500 and then the A200 ETF. My plan was to invest in those long term and then start to explore some individual shares. What I'm looking at now, though, is potentially selling those, consolidating all those funds into something like the DHHF by Beta shares, one that'll allow me to only have to invest in the one ETF rather than the two, and then hopefully that will give me a bit more time and, I suppose, funds to explore some individual share options as well. Just wanted to get your thoughts around consolidating in that sort of manner, if there's anything that I should be mindful of when doing so. And yeah, thanks guys. Cheers.
Nice. Love it. Thanks for the question, Bailey. Keep them coming. equitymates.com/contact. You can leave a voice note just like Bailey did, and we'll make sure we get to it on the show. But Ren, this is a great question. One that often pops up. I think a lot of people start their investing journey and choose a number of ETFs. We certainly were in that position, and then get to a point where they might want to refine their strategy and get to this point where they're like, I've got a reasonable chunk in a couple. How do I navigate where to next? Because I feel like there's another strategy that I want to pursue.
There's always another strategy.
Yes.
I think that's the starting point for me. There's always a shiny new thing. There's always another strategy. There's always someone that you'll hear who's doing things in a slightly different way. I think the starting point needs to be either of those strategies that you've got for your core portfolio, either a couple of ETFs that cover different countries, or just one globally diversified ETF. There's no bad decisions here.
No.
So let's start there.
Yeah.
Whatever you choose, Bailey, well done.
Yes, you could certainly do the A200 and S&P 500 for 40 years and be a very happy investor.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So don't feel like that this is you're making if you don't make a decision, then you're making a bad choice.
So let's go through each option. Why would you consolidate, and why would you stick to your strategy that you have? Obviously, everyone's circumstances are different. So we'll just speak generally about like the different factors you would weigh up. So let's start with why would you consolidate? Why would you sell your A200 and your S&P 500 and just go all in on the DHHF for your core part of your portfolio?
So I think the first thing specifically consolidating into DHHF is you're getting true global exposure.
Yep.
S&P 500, A200, you've got the US and the Australian markets, but this is just going to really give you global exposure to the major markets around the world.
Yep.
Secondly, you're reducing your brokerage costs.
Yep.
You've just got one brokerage cost and you're done.
Yeah. So if you're dollar cost averaging into one ETF rather than two ETFs, and you're at it with a broker that charges you brokerage, you've halved your.
Yes.
It's not going to be a massive cost, but it might be a big percentage if you're dollar cost averaging small amounts.
Absolutely.
So it could make a difference. So I think they're the reasons why you would consolidate. What about reasons why you would not consolidate and stick to that 2 ETF strategy?
You lose a bit of control over how you set up your portfolio, particularly around your weightings.
Yeah.
So with DHHF, you need to look under the hood. You still are largely exposed to the US market, just given how the product is weighted. If you wanted true exposure or equal exposure across countries, like Ren and I have it set up, you probably should be buying individual ETFs so that you can weight your portfolio accordingly.
Yeah, and the ironic thing is if you actually do look under the hood at DHHF, it's 40% US, 36% Australia, and then the remainder is developed markets, ex-US, and emerging markets. So like either way, the majority of your wealth is going to be invested in the US and Australia.
Yeah.
So they're not actually as different as you might think they are.
Just if you've joined us for the first time and have no idea what DHHF is, it's the Beta Shares Diversified High Growth.
So I think that covers some of the factors that you would weigh. I think just generally there's probably some things to consider either way that we should close with. So the first thing is, we said it earlier, worth saying again, that just be confident that there's no bad choices here. Either setup is a great setup for your core portfolio, and then you can invest around that, confident that you've got your core ticking away.
Yeah. Well, I think on that, something to consider as well is just getting set and sorted as early as possible. If you've recognized that this is not the strategy you want to pursue, don't dilly-dally, jump into it and get it set. As early as possible, and you may change later on, but set those foundations early.
Yeah, but if possible, try not to change later on, because just another consideration is tax. You know, the later you leave it, and then if you want to change strategies, the more capital gains tax you'll have on the investment gains that you've made up to that point.
Yes.
So tax is never a reason not to pursue a better strategy. You know, if there's more returns to be made out there, you should be optimizing, but it's just a consideration.
Yeah.
Just the other things to consider are some of the things Bailey was saying around freeing up time and money. I think 2 ETFs or 1 ETF, you should really be investing the same amount. Like you should have a plan where it's, I'm going to take this much from every pay and invest it into my core, and then maybe put a little bit more aside from each pay for satellite investments, individual stocks, whatever it is. But however many ETFs that core portfolio is set up around, the amount you're investing shouldn't change.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think also I would challenge Bailey on the time aspect. Moving from 2 index ETFs to 1, I don't think is going to free up a whole extra world of time to pursue individual stocks. What it feels like is that Bailey could actually benefit from automating the core portfolio and then just not even worrying about it. Then you can focus on the individual stocks that he's interested in.
Yeah, I think however you set up that core dollar cost averaged, market average core portfolio, I think I said core a lot of times there, but just for that, like just automating it is a no-brainer. And we literally wrote the book on it, Don't Stress, Just Invest, available wherever good books are sold. Because then it does free up that time and that mental capacity to think about satellite investments if you're so inclined, or to think about things that are more interesting than index ETFs.
Yeah. Well, Bailey, thank you so much for the question. As I said, if you have a question that you would like us to answer on anything money or investing related, head to equitymates.com/contact. You can leave us a voice note, you can write in, and we will make sure that we get it on the show. and answer it for you. This is a segment we launched a couple of weeks ago, Cheat Sheet, where we look under the hood at the portfolios of some of the best investors, celebrities, politicians, you name it. And today we are going to look at Caledonia Investments. They are an Australian-based global investment manager, and we're going to have a look at their main fund, Caledonia Investments.
Yeah, now this is from their 13F filing. They're big enough that even though they're not American, they filed this 13F in the United States, and that makes public every quarter their shareholdings, what they've been buying and selling. It's not a full accounting of everything they own, but it does give us a good view into some of their bigger positions. And there are some very interesting names that they have been buying or that they've been holding for a while. Some that we've spoken about on the show and quite familiar with.
So let's start at the top. Ren, they've got 12 positions, so I would say reasonably concentrated.
Yeah.
But that's not the only thing that's concentrated in this portfolio.
Yeah, 50% of the reportable investments here is in one company.
Wow.
And that is Flutter Entertainment. Now that is the Irish sports betting giant.
So they are long sports bet.
Yeah. Now, literally sports bet. So Flutter owns Sportsbet in Australia. They own FanDuel in the US. They own Paddy Power in the UK. They're really like the biggest sports betting player in the world.
So the stock's up 18% in the last 12 months. I think it IPO'd way back in early 2000s, and it looks like it's up about 1,300% since it IPO'd. But yeah, 51% of the portfolio is made up of Flutter. Then another large position, Ren, is Zillow Group.
Yeah, now for people who are unfamiliar with Zillow, it's America's equivalent of realestate.com.au. It's a real estate listings portal. And Caledonia have been quite famous about how bullish they are on Zillow. I think probably because they're Australian and because they saw the success of realestate.com.au, they've sort of been very long Zillow for a very long time.
Yeah. It's actually more than 22%. There's actually two share classes here, and they have both 22% for the one and 9%. So over 30% of their portfolio is Zillow.
Yeah. Now they were bullish on Zillow pre-COVID.
Yeah.
And from this reporting, they still own it, so they've held it all the way through. Let me tell you the story of Zillow during the last 5 years.
Okay.
So pre-COVID, in that initial COVID crash, when everything fell majorly in like 6 weeks, it sort of lost half of its value. Zillow did. Then it ran crazy. It went up more than 400% in the go-go years of 2020 and 2021. And then from its peak, it fell 85%.
Wow.
When it just got smashed with all those unprofitable tech companies. It also was doing this thing where it was not just a listings portal, but it was investing in property. It was like buying houses and trying to flip them. It bombed.
Yeah.
It bombed. So Zillow fell 85%. And then from there, it's doubled again, but up at 100%.
Unbelievable.
And all that story, it's about where it started 5 years, 4.5 years
What
ago.
do they say? What does Buffett say? You want to hold companies that if the market closes, you're going to be happy to hold it?
Yeah.
I mean, if you were holding it that entire time and the market's opened again, you would have known nothing happened.
Nothing happened, yeah. It's still a dominant listings portal. So that's a massive holding in their portfolio.
Big holding.
Yeah.
Then their third largest at just under 7% is Liberty Media Corp. We've spoken about this on the show plenty of times. They are the owner of Formula One.
Yeah. There's 9 different Liberty Media shares. So you got to be careful and make sure you're buying the right one. But the one that these guys own is the Formula One.
Yeah, Flonk.
Wonk.
Yeah. So they own 6%. It makes up 6% of their portfolio. And then everything from there is sort of small, slim pickings, but a few notable ones. Just Eat Takeaway.
Yep.
They own Menulog.
Yeah. They're like the food delivery giant. They're European, but they own a heap of different ones. Just Eat, Takeaway.com, Menulog, Grubhub. Hasn't been a good time to be in the food delivery game, I've got to say.
No.
If you look at their share price from when they, really from like the late 2020 period when sort of things started falling away, they're down almost 90%.
Ren, they have your stock of the year as well, Light and Wonder. Light and Wonder, they are in gambling products.
Yeah, they're the pokies player that's kind of challenging Aristocrat.
Yeah, big time. A couple of other notable names. Warner Music Group is in there. Interestingly as well, Ren, they're long online courses.
Yes.
So Udemy or Udemy, however you want to pronounce it, and Coursera. Coursera, both are very large online marketplaces for courses. You can go on, upload a course and sell it if you'd like, or go there and purchase courses across a multiple of disciplines. So yeah, long online courses.
Yeah. So I think that's probably a good summary of how they're investing. I think, very consolidated. You can sort of see some big positions. They've obviously held some of these positions for a long time, Zillow, multiple years. But not names that are super unfamiliar. Like, we've spoken about a lot of these companies on the podcast before. Formula One, we've touched on a lot. Zillow, we've spoken about. Flutter, we've spoken about. So again, I think a reminder that we're going to see over and over again throughout this series is the best investors in the world, they own companies that a lot of people have probably heard of before. The challenge isn't in finding the undiscovered name. It's just identifying the great companies amongst the sea of all of them that we've heard of before.
Good to see no big tech in there. I like that.
Is that good?
I like it. I like seeing some names that are semi-familiar, but they have conviction in something other than NVIDIA.
Yeah, nice.
You know what I mean? Anyway, if you have an investor, a celebrity, a politician, anyone that you would like us to try and go under the hood on their investment portfolio, if the information is publicly available, we will do our best.
Well, speaking of, just to give you a taste of the politicians, we won't go too deep into this, but we did want to have a look at Anthony Albanese, the Australian Prime Minister, because Australian politicians have to publicly declare their interests.
Yes.
And so you can see what they own. Here's something that's a bit disappointing from our Prime Minister.
Yeah.
No shareholdings.
No shareholdings, Ren.
Equity investments. No managed funds.
Nah.
No individual stocks. No ETFs.
Nah.
What is this guy doing? Let's send him a copy of our book.
I know. Unsurprisingly, he does have 2 investment properties.
Yes.
Just like almost every other politician on the list.
Yeah.
We had to scroll a long way before we found a politician who was invested in equities. And this is the structural issue with this country, that they're all so long housing and so short equities, they don't have enough skin in the game to give a shit about what goes on in the share market.
Yeah, if the political incentives around the stocks only going up were the same as the political incentives around the Australian housing continue to go up,
Yes.
God would have a much more popular podcast.
Yes.
But here's something fun. It looks like Albo got involved in debt recycling in 2022 because his house in Marrickville changed from a owner-occupied to an investment property in 2022.
Nice.
So he must have remortgaged or,
Nice.
changed the mortgage to... well, I guess in 2022 he also moved houses into
the
taxpayer-provided accommodation.
Yes.
But yeah, 2 investment properties. Had a third, a unit in Canberra, which he sold. Again, he got taxpayer-funded accommodation in Canberra.
It's fascinating to see when you go through all of them how many of them. Kingston, very popular suburb in Canberra for investment properties.
Classic. Well, they would live there when Parliament's sitting.
So,
yeah. So, look,
come on, politicians, get into it.
Come on, Albo, buy a stock.
Get DHHF or something in there. Anyway, hit us up, equitymates.com/contact if you'd like us to try and dig under the hood of anyone else's investment portfolio. If we can publicly find it, we will do it. But Ren, that brings us to the end of today's show. If you'd like to ask a question, if you would like to submit to any of our other segments, investor confessions, you name it, come to equitymates.com/contact. And if you get a lot of value from our show, we would really appreciate if you could just leave a rating and a review through your podcast app right now. It'll take you less than 30 seconds, and it does really help us get in front of new Equity Mates listeners. But as always, thank you for listening, and Ren, we'll pick it up next week.
Sounds good.
Equity Mates.
I will say this about investing. Everything you do learn is cumulative. What I learned at 20 is useful.